Hey you, I'm Flor Amelia, and thank you so much for joining us in the very first episode of Starting with IEP. I'm happy, I'm scared, I'm beyond nervous, I'm feeling all of these different feelings, and I guess I'm feeling all these feelings because this very first episode has a lot to do with my daughter. And because of that, I am nervous. I'm really nervous. And I actually had to go back and feel all these feelings again. And for those that don't know me, I do want to share that I'm a very outgoing person, very friendly, very talkative. So you guys don't often see me that way. If you guys knew me, you guys would know that I can get that way, but I don't allow myself to get that way. I'm very friendly, I'm very happy, but I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm a very upbeat person. I'm a very optimistic, not pessimistic. So that being said, I want to provide a disclaimer. Well, actually, there's two disclaimers that I want to share. The first one is that I'm so sorry. Let me explain that the episode is going to be in audio. And the reason for that is because it was very difficult for me to share my daughter's story. Oh my goodness, I'm getting emotional again. It was very difficult for me to share my daughter's story. It was really hard for me to even edit that video. It was hard for me to see. And also, I kind of don't want my kids, when they grow up, I don't want them to see me at such a vulnerable state. I really do my best to show my kids the strongest side of me, because often they have seen me very weak. And on those weak moments, it's when my daughter's having her seizures, or I'm panicking because of Aliyah's seizures. And I'm just thinking about like my 14-year-old Bruce, if he were to see this, I don't want him to think, is my mom okay? Or is she still feeling those feelings? Or, I really worry about my other children, worrying about my mental state or my mental health when it comes to that. So I think I just prefer it to be of audio for now. And maybe in the future, once I get more comfortable and I'm used to kind of showing that vulnerable side of me. And I think I have to kind of like put this mask on for a lot of people, for the people that I work with, the coworkers that I have, the families that I serve, the participants that I'm working with, for my little kids, for my Aliyah. Like, I have to put this mask on that I'm fine, which I am fine. Please don't get me wrong. I really am fine. But there are moments that it is hard. It's really hard. And really the only ones that have seen me through that are other special needs moms, because they get it. They really do get it. And if I cry, if I have my ugly cry, they understand me. So I guess for the rest of the world, I do put on this mask. I wanted to give that disclaimer, and I'm so sorry that as of right now, it is only available in audio, the first episode. And the second disclaimer is, okay, this one's going to be hard, because I do want to prepare for the new moms that are starting this journey, or for the moms that are in this journey and are still having a really hard time accepting or being okay with, or there's just so many different levels of grief, right? Or phases in grief, that if you're not there yet, you don't have to listen to this episode. Actually, I kind of would like you to not listen to this episode. And the reason why is because if I were in your shoes, if I were to go back in time and someone shared this episode with me and I wasn't mentally ready, I think I would fall deeper into depression. So, if you're not ready, please just wait for next week. It's a different episode where we talk more about IEPs. So this episode, you can just wait until you're ready to hear someone else's story. I do want to share that my daughter is happy. I am happy because she's happy. She often has these like motor and vocal stereotypies where she like flaps her hands, and she has like, it's for me, it's the most beautiful thing because I know that she's happy. So please know that my daughter is happy. It's just that I really do worry about the moms that are just starting out, and if they were to hear it, they don't need to be sad. But again, I do want to just share that there is a happy ending because my daughter is happy right now, and I am just a busy bee. I remember when I was back then, when I was starting the journey, I didn't know how to control my depression. I did not know it. And then actually in this episode, you're going to be hearing a lot of the different activities that I'm doing. Like, I think the biggest project that I can't believe we're doing is starting the nonprofit Ascenda Foundation. I cannot believe that actually happened. But I guess the busier that I am, the busier that in here I am, and this and everything, there is no time to really dwell on things I cannot control, like my daughter's episodes in her seizure activities. I can't control her seizures. So back then you guys, I didn't really sleep. I think I got my body so used to not sleeping. I used to only sleep 2 to 4 hours. Now my daughter's doing better. So now I'm sleeping anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. I know it's not great, but it's better than 2 hours because I didn't allow myself to sleep because I needed to monitor my daughter's seizures. So I know it's getting better because I'm sleeping more. But back then, all I dwelled on, all I fixated on was how to improve her seizure activity. How can I give her a better life? How can I make sure that my Leah stays with me? Because I was afraid of SUDEP, and I talk more about that over the episode. So, yeah, and I'm sorry for the second disclaimer to be longer than anticipated, but I just wanted to make sure that I don't make anyone sad or in a different, the whole point of this is for us to create a community. I want to work with other moms. I really want to work with other moms. I would love to work with your guys' children because I know my children really do understand my daughter. My children are actually really great with the special needs community. They love working with Aliyah. They love working with Aliyah's friends. It's so beautiful. So in my head, I picture moms helping other moms encouraging other moms to be in the field of special education, speech therapy, occupational therapy, ABA, music therapy, psychology, really in everything that you would see that we need support as parents. I want us out there because I feel that we can make all of those professions better because we can be right. We can wear all the hats and we understand these feelings and all these emotions, because sometimes I feel like we get discarded like, oh, that mom. But no, this mom has feelings. This mom has concerns. And I don't know if you guys heard the saying, behavior is not spontaneous. So for me, if I'm going to my doctor's appointments and if I'm asking a lot of questions and if I kind of feel that you're not listening to me, maybe it's because I was ignored in the beginning, and I just constantly need to make sure that my daughter is being seen and being listened and being, taken care of when she goes to her doctor's appointments. And again, you'll hear that in the first episode. So, I really want to create this positive environment. I have been to plenty of other special needs, like special needs mom groups, and I kind of not felt safe in that environment because sometimes moms can turn really aggressive to other moms, or I don't want that. I really want us to work together so we can build a better future for our children. Because if you share what you're doing and I share what I'm doing, and then we both collaborate and work together, and then we can make sure that we uplift, because I'm sure all of us want to rest in peace, if you know what I mean. We want to make sure that our children's future is a good one, is a safe one, right? It's a happy one. It's a meaningful one for them. So the more that we all work together, the more that we share resources with one another, the better that our kids' life is going to be. So let me know what you guys think about the very first episode. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Okay, I'm super excited. I'm beyond nervous. And again, if you guys are not ready to listen to the first episode because there's a lot of emotions, don't worry. Just please wait till the next one. And when you guys are ready, just join me. Okay. All right. Take care. Bye. Hope you like it. Oh my goodness. I'm so nervous. Okay. Bye. Hey there, and welcome to the very first episode of Starting with IEP. I'm Flor Amelia, a licensed special educator, behavior analyst, and above all, a parent who knows the challenges and hopes that comes with advocating for a child with special needs. I have lived this journey from the inside out, and I know how overwhelming and isolating it can feel. And that's why this podcast is here, for families navigating the special education system who want clarity, confidence, and a little more compassion along the way. But before we dive into these goals, evaluations, and acronyms, I want to share why this matters so deeply to me. I want to share my daughter's story, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little emotional already. It's very difficult for me to talk about it, but before there were any IEPs, before the specialists and the diagnoses, there was just a baby and a mother who knew something was wrong. 16 years ago today, on my birthday, my water broke. I was expecting my baby girl, Aliyah. And yes, I already knew she was a girl. I chose to record this episode today on purpose because every year this day reminds me of how her story began. And I need to be honest about something that I don't really hear many parents talk about, but it's very real to me. I hate birthdays. Not because I don't want to celebrate life. I love celebrating my daughter's life. But specifically on my birthday, on those days, it feels like a ticking time bomb. Because Aliyah's birthday is right around the corner. And what I once saw as a future that was filled with excitement now carries this heavy truth of knowing that the world may not be so kind to her or accepting of her. And now I'm beyond scared of the day that I'm no longer here to pave her way. It was supposed to be something beautiful, a start of all the dreams that I had for her. But instead, my birthday became a reminder, not of the future that I've imagined, but the milestones that were slipping further away. Every year reminds me, she's about to be 2, and she still isn't doing what other 2-year-olds are doing. She's about to be 3, and we're still chasing the milestones from 2. She's 4, and now we have a whole new list of things that she can't do. But she should be able to do, but she can't. Every birthday felt like this overwhelming checklist of all the things that we were behind on. Every birthday. And I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. For many parents like me, birthdays aren't just about the balloons and cakes. If you think about it, it's hard. It's not about the balloons and cakes. It's about those pictures. It might be simple for other parents to be taking pictures and they're like, smile, and they say cheese and they look at the picture, but we're spending it felt like hours to me when I'm saying smile, say cheese, because I really wanted a good memory of my family looking at the picture, but it wasn't like that. And blowing out the candles, something that may seem very simple for another parent, was very hard for my little girl. And seeing, especially when her cousins were over, and especially if the cousins were, which they were, were near around her age, that was really, really hard to see because it was like the comparison was in my face type of thing. And I want to say, if I'm being honest here, that yes, there was a lot of jealousy and there was a lot of feeling that it wasn't fair for my baby girl. Birthdays were hard. Birthdays were really hard. They're like these quiet grief check-ins. And it's a reminder of what was supposed to be, and somehow I'm supposed to be excited and smile and celebrate while carrying all of that. But yes, I promise. I did learn to shift. I no longer live by those checklists. Instead, I do celebrate her inch stones, the little steps that over time do grow into milestones. Her laughter, her courage, her victories, no matter how small, those moments will never show up on those progression charts. But they meant everything to me. It was the fuel that kept me going. And maybe that's why I held on to my dreams for her so tightly. Because deep down, I knew something wasn't right. About 7 months old, I started noticing these signs that overwhelmed me. I brought my concerns to her doctor and described it as like these tin drops. And I told the doctor how I noticed a pattern about it happening right after she woke up. But they quickly dismissed me. They assured me that she was going to grow out of it. But by 8 months old, it only had worsened. Those subtle chin drops became these drastic head drops where her head would like suddenly drop and her arms would jerk up. But the pediatrician still dismissed me. They said it was typical for first-time moms to worry this much. Not one pediatrician in that clinic took the time to investigate it further. I remember asking, can they please check her neck? Because it seemed like she almost had no control over her head. But the doctors quickly examined her and said her neck looks just fine. But meanwhile, those head drops quickly intensified. What started as an episode in the morning soon began to invade her afternoon naps. And yet the best explanation that these doctors can give me was that they were just night terrors. Please understand, you guys, that I wasn't getting any answers. I was so desperate. I even started wondering that maybe she was seeing ghosts. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but again, I was in deep desperation. I needed an explanation, any explanation, because deep down I knew something was wrong, but those doctors kept brushing me off. And then came the line that I'll never forget. Please stop calling. There are actually sick kids who need to be seen. But little did they know that it was my baby girl who needed to be seen. I felt so small, a young mom with a voice no one seemed to hear. At the time, I was in my 20s, a student at Iowa State University finishing my degree in microbiology. Sean, my husband, was stationed in Texas, and the plan was for us to join him there soon. I didn't know it yet, but I would eventually become a mom of 5, balancing the chaos and joy of a big family while navigating the medical and educational maze for Aliyah. At the time, though, all of my hope was pinned on the next move. I truly believed that Texas might be the place where answers finally found us. But the transition overwhelmed me because I was pregnant with our second child, and I had no idea what was to come. At 14 months, the doctors were still calling those terrifying head drops night terrors. But everything changed the day that Aliyah lost control of her body, hitting her face straight onto the floor. It was at the bowling alley. That moment, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Instead of going back to the usual pool of pediatricians, the one that kept on brushing me off again and again, I knew I couldn't go there. So I drove nearly an hour to Des Moines, straight to the ER, desperate for help. That's when they finally gave me an explanation. They told me it was seizures, infantile spasms, a catastrophic form of epilepsy. By then it was too late for medical intervention. Those last months, they mattered. The neurologist on call told me if we had caught it earlier, we might have had a better chance to reduce the seizures. That moment shattered me. Aliyah was regressing so fast, she forgot how to walk. And she went back onto those walkers. Her language was deteriorating. Seizures took over her life. not long after, those diagnoses just began to keep on coming. At 18 months, Aliyah was officially diagnosed with autism. By 24 months, the words moderate to severe mental retardation were added to her chart. Then came more labels: global developmental delay, traumatic brain injury, expressive aphasia, and the list kept on growing from that. I couldn't control her seizures or take them away, no matter how much I really wanted to. But what I could do was fight for her education. I poured everything I had into making sure that those IEPs reflected who she was and how she learns best. Because the truth was that epilepsy did change and did shape her learning curve. And she needed a plan that was built around that reality that she faced every day. And while each diagnosis gave us words to explain her challenges to her teachers, they never really defined her. What weighed on me even more was the fear that her teachers would see her only as those medical terms. Her life could not be dictated by autism or limited by intellectual disability. I refused to let anyone lower her expectations just because of what was written in her file. I needed to make sure that this was about teaching Aliyah, meeting her exactly where she needed to be, and helping her learn in a way that made sense to her. Because she wasn't a set of test results or clinical notes. She was a child who deserved to be taught in a way that she learns best. Fortunately, we met a social worker at the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. Yes, we actually went from Ames, Iowa to Des Moines, Iowa to now Iowa City. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted more options. I wanted more doctors. I wanted more opinions. I was desperate. I was still desperate, you guys. Desperation of a mom, not having control of my daughter's seizures. I think I was losing it. I think that desperation made a lot of the neurologists make sure that I always would be talking to the social workers. And I'm so grateful for that, because it was one of those social workers that really did listen to me and really heard the pain that I was in as a mom. She understood the fear of my daughter regressing more and more. She told me about the infants and toddlers program. Because of her, Aliyah was supported with an IFSP, an individualized family service plan. So it's similar to an IEP, but it's made for children under the age of 3. And what was so nice about it is that they gave us access for therapists to come into our homes. Now, I want to say, in my home, I was very broken. So I was so grateful to have people come in and help me, because at that time I was grieving. I was at my most lowest point. And these therapists that came into my home, they gave me so much hope. They showed me that Aliyah was able to learn. They were being very creative, thinking out of the box, breaking things down for me. And I'm like, oh, if I break it down even further, eventually she can make it across that bridge. For that, I am forever thankful for her allowing me to think that way so early on. But while early intervention brought us a sense of hope, the medical world brought us nothing but confusion. One doctor said one thing, the next said something completely different. No two neurologists gave me the same treatment plan for Aliyah. One recommended strong medications, while another warned that it might be too harsh for her organs. We chose the option backed by most research, the one with the highest chance of helping Aliyah. And what I was confused about is, we as Aliyah's parents, we had to be the one to administer the medication. I thought this was something that, because it involved needles, so I thought the nurse would have to do it. But no, we would have to give this to her on a regular basis. We gave her ACTH. It is a powerful steroid, shots that were injected directly into her thigh. And yes, it did hurt, but it was considered one of the first line treatments for infantile spasms. But the cost was written all over her face. Her cheeks became rounded and her features really swelled up. And what the doctors called it was moon face. And ACTH was just the beginning. Each medication carried its own heavy price. Every dose became a reminder of the toll this fight was taking on to my baby's tiny body. Vigabatrin, with its terrifying risk of damaging her peripheral vision, Topamax, which slowed her speech, Keppra, which unleashed this aggressive behavior that I have never seen my baby girl do. Over time, Aliyah has tried more than 20 anti-seizure medications, sometimes 3 or 4 at a time, 2 to 3 times a day, with dosages constantly being adjusted, with hopes that one of those dosages would show us any signs of improvement in her seizure activity. It was beyond overwhelming. And then came the talk about brain surgeries. In the years that followed, Aliyah did endure 5 of them. 5 brain surgeries. And with each one of those, we always had a new version of Aliyah that came back to us. Every time, we always held the hope that this might be the breakthrough that we were looking for. This might be it. And then soon after broken, that it didn't do what we thought it would do for her. Each one came with the fear of what we could lose, and it felt too extreme. But when they also mentioned SUDEP, sudden and unexpected death and epilepsy, I knew I had to be sure I was making the right choices for her. We went from Iowa to Minnesota to Illinois, and finally to Maryland, to reach the world-renowned Johns Hopkins. I know. But I heard so much about it that I just knew I had to do this for Aliyah. But unfortunately, doctor after doctor told me the same thing. It is what it is. She'll have seizures for life. I noticed that there were more specialists available on the East Coast, and more research was being done on epilepsy there. The search for the right medical care didn't end in Maryland. If anything, it opened up my eyes that there were more options out there. I knew being in the East Coast meant that I can cast a wider net, reaching into more of the surrounding states to keep finding those answers that I needed for my baby girl. So we kept on looking. We went to Children's National in DC. We saw a pediatric neurologist in Florida and in New Jersey. We went to Philadelphia to visit CHOP. But it wasn't until we traveled to New York and met Dr. Judith Bluestein that's when something finally shifted. She was the one. She heard me. She saw Aliyah. She explained every medication clearly, what the medications did, what it could do, and what might cost us on the side effects. It was the first time that I felt like I had a partner in my daughter's case. Not just a desperate mom asking questions. To this day, we still work with her. We feel so blessed to have finally found someone who truly listened to my baby girl. Finding the right neurologist for Aliyah gave us the space to finally focus on her progress in school. But getting to that point wasn't simple. It meant countless appointments, second opinions, traveling to find answers. And the truth is, we could only do that because of one thing. Our insurance, TRICARE. Because of the military. Do you see now why my husband had to stay in the military? Because of TRICARE, we were able to travel throughout the U.S. to search for the very best medical treatment for Aliyah. But you guys, now here's for the best news. Sean is finally retiring next month in September. Yes, I know, it's right there. No more deployments after years of having him being sent overseas every 2 years. The separations were horrendous, difficult. I don't even know how I survived. There were a few deployments. Definitely the last deployment, believe me, I wanted to call it quits. It was hard. I don't know how other moms do it. It's going to be a different chapter. I'm very, very grateful because he's definitely my rock, you guys. And when I am at my lowest lows, he's the one that picks me up. So when he does go overseas and I'm here by myself, struggling to get by, when I'm telling you I don't know how I survived, you guys, really, I don't know how I survived. I really do not know how I survived without him because he is our rock. We are so ready. We are so excited to finally step into that next chapter together. Sorry, I was excited to share about the retirement news. It's something that we have only dreamt about. But going back into the story, when Aliyah was 3, I should say that our move wasn't only about medical care. It was also about increasing the chances that Aliyah's IEP would be fully followed and faithfully implemented. Because while her health was critical, so was her education, her services, her supports, her daily opportunities to learn and grow. Part of that decision actually came from that Johns Hopkins social worker I mentioned earlier, a special needs mom herself. I wish I remembered her name. It was just so many medical personnel that we spoke to. So I'm so sorry I can't remember her name, but I am so grateful for her. Because she was the one who told me how Maryland's special education system was unlike any she had seen in other states. Because she also was a military family. And I've always trusted the guidance of other moms who walked this road. So I'm, again, very, very grateful to her. And when Aliyah turned 3, she transitioned from the IFSP into a formal IEP. And when we officially moved to Maryland, her IEP followed her. It gave me something no medication had, a sense of stability in the middle of so much uncertainty. Her IEP just didn't address academics. It helped us tailor her learning around her medical condition. And what I loved most about her IEP was that it didn't reduce her to her diagnoses. Yes, the paperwork listed autism, traumatic brain injury, expressive aphasia, global delay, etc., etc. But her team didn't just teach her because of those labels. They taught Aliyah as Aliyah, an individualized child, learning at her own pace, in her own way. Her goals weren't written for diagnoses. They were written for a little girl who deserved to be seen, heard, and supported for who she truly is. Her teachers learned what triggered her seizures and how to recognize seizure activities. Her therapies were coordinated so that on a seizure-heavy day, expectations shifted without guilt. It reminded her team that Aliyah wasn't just a diagnosis. She was an individual child, learning at her own pace in her own way. And I know I keep on emphasizing this, but for me, it was so important for them to see Aliyah as Aliyah and not compare her to the rest of the students in the other class. I just really wanted to emphasize this because I just didn't want my daughter to be another number. I didn't want her IEP to be a cookie cutter. For me as a mom, that IEP was more than a piece of paper. It was a lifeline. Again, please don't forget our journey where we came from, how everything was just up in the air. We just didn't know what was going on, but her IEP was a plan, a team that recognized her needs and tried to meet them. But what many people don't realize is that Aliyah's IEP wasn't just about academics. It also addressed the medical challenges that impacted her ability to learn. Her seizures didn't follow a schedule, and the fatigue they caused often made learning feel impossible to her. Her team worked with us to build accommodations that gave her the space to rest, recover, and re-engage without feeling left behind. And just as important, the IEP allowed her to learn as an individualized child that she is. I know I sound like a broken record, but there's a reason to this. There's been countless of times where teachers, admin, they reassured me that they know how to teach Aliyah because simply they have taught other children in the spectrum. But I told them, Aliyah isn't just a teenager with autism. There's so many other factors that we need to also assess and take into account when we're making these accommodations, modifications, and working into her IEP and working into her transition IEP as well. There's so many other variables here that we just can't be, because of the label, we're going to put that she or he can do X, Y, and Z. That's why there is individualized in IEP for an individualized education plan. It's individualized. There's no two people out there that are the same. So that means there's no two learners that are the same. That might work for general education, but not for special education. We need to specialize their learning. And just as important, the IEP, it allowed her to learn as an individualized child that she is. That meant that her goals weren't copied and pasted from a template. They were tailored to her strength, her pace, and the way that she processed the world. Please understand that there is a power to an IEP when it's done right. It doesn't just teach skills, it protects dignity, health, and hope. Now, I'm not going to pretend that it was easy by any means. No, it was not easy going into those IEP meetings. No, they were not. There were many times that I felt unheard, plenty of times that I walked out of those meetings in tears,
And even then, having that IEP still gave me something to stand on. And I want parents listening right now to know you don't have to go through this. You don't have to go through what I did. 1 year, I spent well over $40,000 on educational advocates and private therapies because I was desperate for answers and support. It was also the year that Aliyah was recovering from one of her surgeries. So I was very, very desperate. I think throughout this whole journey, I was always in this desperation mode. I want to say it does get better, but I did all of this because, again, I was desperate for answers and I needed to feel any type of level of support. But through this podcast, I want to share that knowledge with you so you can feel empowered without that financial burden. Because when parents have both the knowledge and the confidence, they can turn that IEP into a real plan for their child's future. But I also knew I couldn't just rely on the system. I needed to focus on Aliyah, to be her teacher at home. Because every year I just watch her fall further behind from her peers and her cousins. We tried everything: speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, music therapy, and even HIPAA therapy. And just like we searched tirelessly for the best neurologist to treat her seizures, I sought out the very best for providers for each of these therapies because I knew the quality of care could make all the difference. But it wasn't until we started applied behavior analysis, ABA, that I saw something shift. Her language took off, her focus sharpened. I was so amazed. I wanted to become a registered behavior technician, an RBT, just so I can learn what they were doing. I started recording her sessions so I can practice with her at home. And even when some thought I was looking for mistakes, I assured them no. I was just really grateful. I wanted to learn. Seeing her progress lit a fire in me. The data charts, the way her growth was measured and made visible, it gave me hope. Again, hope. Once I find hope, I really tend to lash on and not want to give it up. It was so important to me because it gave me proof to show to the school that she can learn, that she is able to retain that information. And because of that, I wanted to understand it all. Not just as her mom, but as someone who could help shape her future. So I made it my mission to complete a master's program in applied behavior analysis at Northeastern University. But then, during an IEP meeting, someone told me to stay in my lane. They're talking about the behavior side. In that moment, I realized if I wanted to advocate fully for Aliyah, I couldn't just understand the science of learning. I had to understand the system too. So I went to get on my second master's in special education at George Mason University because I knew no one was going to fight for her the way that I could. And as Aliyah grew, the stakes only got higher. It wasn't just about those early milestones anymore. It was about her future. I'll never forget the moment that changed my entire perspective on her IEPs. At a special needs fair, while exploring future opportunities, I was told that Aliyah wouldn't qualify for certain programs simply because she was too dependent on adult support. That was disheartening, but it was also a wake-up call. I realized that I just couldn't focus on today's progress. I had to start planning for her teenage years and for her transition into adulthood, because one day I won't be here to be able to advocate for her. I often think about the day that I'm no longer here. And for me, that's very terrifying to imagine and picture, but that's reality. Tomorrow is not a guarantee. And I know it's very sad to be talking about this, but that's what I often think about. Even though I have 5 children, only 4 of them are able to advocate for themselves. Even my 3-year-old, if her shoes are too small, she would be telling me exactly what part of her shoe hurts. But Aliyah, she would endure the pain or the discomfort. I'm constantly checking if her shoes are fitting on right. I just really worry about her. And I also worry about the day that my children start having their own families. Worry about their future husband and wives. What if they see Aliyah as a burden? And then that causes stress on her siblings or some type of marriage issues because of the uncertainty of who's going to be taking care of her or who's going to be advocating for her or who is going to be doing what for her. I worry about that. And Aliyah being a girl, it's really hard for Sean, her dad. It's hard for him to do things for her. I'm really worried about the day that I won't be able to help her wash her hair. Who's going to be washing her hair appropriately and thoroughly? Who's going to be helping her during those moments? I'm afraid of her being abused. I pray that that doesn't happen, but I do read about what's going on in the special needs community and how they're so vulnerable that it does happen out there. I'm really afraid of dying, not because of death. I'm just so afraid of leaving Aliyah. I'm so afraid of leaving her because I know I'm her strongest advocate. And if I'm not here, who's going to advocate for her needs? I know that my other children can advocate for themselves, but Aliyah's not there right now. So I often worry about that. I really just want to be at peace, and I want to know that I have left her with the tools and supports that she needs in order to live as independent as possible. I also want her to be happy. I want her to feel that she is leading a meaningful life. I want her to be able to advocate that if the schedule says that they're going out for a movie, but she doesn't want to go to the movies, she actually wants to do a 3-mile walk. I want her to be able to advocate for that. I don't want her to be miserable doing things what other people would like her to do. I mean, having options is great, but also, can you imagine living a life doing things that you don't want to be doing? I don't want that for Aliyah. It's very hard to find activities and social groups that are accessible to her because of all these limitations about where her adulthood is and me freaking out about her transition. I enrolled to pursue my PhD program in applied behavior analysis, but this time in a focus in organizational behavior management, OBM. And the reason why I chose this focus was because I saw there was just so many limitations. So I thought maybe I can create a new goal for me, that I need to create more inclusive opportunities for young adults. But the focus would be in the workplace. But about 2 years ago, I had to put a pause on those studies because the company that I'm supporting, Avanzos, is expanding. And we just launched a new autism waiver department in addition to the ABA services. And we did this because we were meeting the growing needs of our families that we were serving. And hopefully soon, we'll be launching our DDA program, the Developmental Disabilities Administration here in Maryland. For those who may not be familiar, DDA is the state agency that oversees services for adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities. So once a person ages out of the school-based supports and even out of the programs like ABA or the autism waiver, DDA is often the next step. It covers things like day programs, job training, personal assistance, and the community integration services. Essentially the tools and supports that help someone live as independently as possible into adulthood. But here's the challenge. In Maryland, as in many states, families often struggle to actually find providers once their child qualifies. The services are often written into a plan, but there aren't enough agencies to deliver them. Or programs that do exist may not be a good fit, especially for individuals with high support needs. That's why we created this program. I wanted to make sure that families didn't fall like they were being pushed off a cliff once school or ABA services ended. They deserve a pathway forward. And it's not just Maryland. Every state has its own version of DDA. Some call it DDS or regional centers or simply the Office of Developmental Services. The name might change, but the purpose is still the same: to give adults with developmental disabilities the supports they need to work, live, and belong in their community. For us, launching the DDA program isn't just about filling a gap. It's about making sure individuals don't just transition into adulthood, they thrive in it. Because the truth is, adulthood is the largest portion of a person's life, and our children deserve more than to simply age out of support. And that brings me back to the foundation of it all, the IEPs. Because while therapies, programs, and services change over time, the one thing that is consistently have anchored us as parents during the school year was the IEP. It's not just about the present moment. The IEP is actually a blueprint preparing our children for their adulthood. That's what an IEP is meant to do, not only to support today's need, but to also build the skills, confidence, and independence our children will need for the future. It was the roadmap that kept us moving forward, even when everything else felt uncertain. And that's when it hit me when I understood all of this. Because if this was the journey for me with all of my training and resources, what about all the other families who don't have that? What about the parents still trying to figure it out on their own? That question became my turning point. I knew I needed to do more than advocate for Aliyah. I needed to help other families navigate this journey too, especially those whose children, like mine, don't fit neatly into most programs because of the high support needs. Too often when we can't find a seat at the table, we have to build the seat, and sometimes even the table to ourselves. And that's actually the reason why we created Ascenda Foundation. Through Ascenda, we're committed to supporting teens and young adults with transition services that focus on job skill development, meaningful social opportunities, and building friendships and confidence that they need to step into adulthood with the purpose and hope. Because families shouldn't have to piece it all together alone. And this mission isn't just stopping with Ascenda. I'm currently working on a book that hopefully it can be published by the end of this year, but maybe, crossing my fingers, I hope so soon. But it's a practical guide to help families navigate the special education system with clarity, confidence, and the tools to create a better outcomes for our children. And then there's this podcast, Starting with IEP. And in here, we will break down the IEP process piece by piece, bringing in different perspectives from parents, educators, specialists, so you can hear the real experience and practical advice on how to navigate it. It's all about giving the families insight, tools, and confidence to turn their IEP into a powerful plan for their child's future. Because I know firsthand how overwhelming it can feel when you're in the thick of it. I've been through the grief. I've faced the meetings where you walk out in tears. I've seen what's possible when parents have the knowledge, confidence, and the right plan in place. Because when we walk this road together, we don't just change one child's story. We begin rewriting what's possible for an entire generation. I still remember being handed a poem, Welcome to Holland. If you're not familiar, Welcome to Holland was written by Emily Pearl Kingsley, a mom to a child with a disability. She compares it to planning a dream trip to Italy, only to land in Holland instead. At first, Holland feels disappointing. It's not where you plan to be, but over time, you start notice its own beauty, the tulips, the windmills, the art. This message is meant to be comforting, to help parents find peace in a different journey. But when I first received it, I wasn't ready. Instead of comfort, it felt like resignation. I hated that poem. Because in my heart, I wasn't ready to settle for Holland. That was hard to say, I'm sorry. But please know that over time, I did realize something. That Italy wasn't coming. And if I stayed stuck grieving on the trip that I didn't get, I would have missed the beauty that was right in front of me. I was able to notice those windmills, to love Holland that we landed in. The truth is, everything that I've studied, every degree, every late night, every IEP, it's all because of Aliyah. She shaped the mother, the advocate, and the professional that I've become. I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for her. So Aliyah, if you ever hear this one day, thank you. Thank you for teaching me patience, resilience, and a love deeper than I ever imagined. You are my reason. And because of you, I want every parent to know they don't have to walk on this road alone. Because when we walk together, we don't just change our own child's path, we start changing the future for many. And that's exactly why Starting with IEP was created. This podcast is an extension of everything Aliyah has taught me. A space to break down the IEP process, to share different perspectives, and to highlight the real-life experience and strategies to help families navigate with confidence. Each week, we'll walk this road together, one step at a time. We'll unpack how to read your IEP, how to write the goals that truly matter, what your rights really are, and how to use them without burning bridges. And we'll hear from real families just like yours who are finding their way through this journey. Catch you next week. Let's start with IEP and build from there. So, what did you guys think about the first episode of Starting with IEP? Please let me know in the comments. Also, if you would like to communicate with me, connect even more, you can send me a DM in my Instagram account at Flor_Amelia_EBS.
If you want to suggest future topics, and also if you want to suggest people that I can interview, or you yourself would like to be interviewed by me, please let me know and we can connect there. But until then, I'll catch you guys next week. Take care. Bye.